Possessor is a new film by Brandon Cronenberg, the son of illustrious sci-fi auteur David Cronenberg. It's about an assassin who can take over the mind of a specific target, control them, possess them, and essentially turn them into an assassin. The film, it works more on a technical level than a story level, but I'll get into that here in a second. So, what's the story about? Well, the story is, I'm going to fill in some names here for the main characters. If I could alternatively title this film like another name, I would have it Tammy and Bob's Wacky Mental Misadventures. Because there's certain missteps made in the story process about this, that it's a very lofty and heady premise, but I can't really take it as seriously because of said missteps. Okay, so anyways, so the story is about Tammy as Tansa, the main characters who leave very little impression. Tansa is a assassin working for a nameless assassination agency that takes over the minds of certain targets so that they can get close to their assassination targets. And then theoretically, you will not be able to place who the assassin is or why this person was specifically targeted by a specific organization. So you won't be able to figure out who did it or why. Okay, so the film proper focuses on Tammy. Tammy, who is, by the way, the best of the best. When it comes to the Possessor assassins, she is the best of the best. Because she is someone who can... she's the perfect chameleon. She is someone who can wholly embody her target to where no one would ever question that she has taken over someone so that she can get close to her target. And she's kind of getting to the end of her, to the end of her line. We can kind of feel that, like, okay, it's almost the very end of her career. And so she's going to be on one of her last jobs, and that is to take over Bob. I believe the character's real name is Colin, played by Christopher Abbott. Tammy takes over Bob's mind. And from day one, everyone surrounding Bob is like, "Hey, Bob, man, you feeling okay, Bob? Something's wrong with you. You don't seem yourself." What do you mean? I am perfectly acting like myself. I am Bob. This is how I act. Before I become too redundant with this, let me just get into a proper breakdown. The assassin, the possessor, she takes over the mind of a young man who is the fiancé of the daughter of the CEO of a very powerful and illustrious tech company. Okay? And with the sole intent of infiltrating the inner circle of the CEO, and then offing him, offing his daughter, and then offing, eventually himself. That's the way that they, it's a self-cleaning con. Whoever is possessed, eventually they off themselves as well. So that way, there's no interrogation and no one can figure out, oh, by the way, this person had their mind taken over, and that's how, these assassins were able to get to these folks. Because I guess forensic pathology doesn't exist in this world. The production is magnificent. There's that old saying that they don't make them like this film anymore. And you can clearly see the influence and the elbow grease of the old masters when it comes to 80s sci-fi horror, because it reminds me a lot of course, David Cronenberg, but also Paul Verhoeven. The production uses these ideas and then translates them onto the screen in a very rarely seen practical effects extravaganza, and I love that. I like this film specifically and especially for the practical effects that were involved. Because when you have the Possessor possessing her target, there's a series of vignettes that showcase the push and pull of one psyche being overwhelmed by the other. And it reminds me a lot of Panos Cosmatos' Beyond the Black Rainbow when it comes to its surreal imagery about one mind taking over the other and the struggle therein. So, production-wise, it's incredible. It's top-notch. Performance-wise, you look at the actress who plays Tanza and you look at the actor who plays Colin, and they're good actors. They've been in the industry for a while now, and they wouldn't be getting jobs if they weren't good actors. That being said, the performances are nothing really to write home about. And I don't know if it was just a difficulty translating that the Possessor, you're someone who feels alien and displaced from most of humanity, and so you don't really know how to act on your own when you're not playing a role, essentially, when you're not puppeting someone, to get to a target. Or Colin playing a disillusioned boyfriend of a very powerful CEO, like family, a tech family, or whatever you want to call it. Because you have this, I would say, middle-aged or maybe a little older British woman, and she has to plug into the mind of a 20-something, 30-something young man, and there's a lot. If you're gonna have a story about the struggle of psyche and mental dominance, or this woman plugging into the mind of this younger man, there's a lot that you can do with identity. What is it? Wow, that really feels like wow, what is it like to be vigorous and young and strong and like that? Is it intoxicating? What about translating over genders? Like, wow, now I'm this very strong young man, and I'm wealthy, and I can have the world by my little finger if I wanted to, if it wasn't for the stipulations of my assignment. But I don't read any of that in here. It seemed, and that's the odd thing, because the Possessor is supposed to be at the top of her game, and for some reason, she's so obviously not in this. They give her a very, very small brief about okay, this is where you live, this is where you work, this is how you pronounce your girlfriend's name, the name of the target. This is how you pronounce your girlfriend's name. Go. And you have one scene where she's studying a very brief evening conversation between the two of them, and it's like taking a test that you never studied for. Clearly, she cannot accomplish this assignment in the flawless manner that her associates are expecting, because suddenly she is just, "Hello world, I am Colin, and everything is okay." And it just doesn't work. And Colin, as the other half, as his mind is being taken over, and he does have some resistance here, he doesn't treat it like a trauma. One of the most horrifying ideas being that, you're not in control of your own thoughts. So you can work with a lot of ideas regarding paranoia and struggle, for dominance of his own mind, but it doesn't really happen in the film. And I feel that the performances and the overall opportunities presented in the film were never really achieved, unfortunately. So the production of the film is high grade. It is wonderful. If I had to give this a letter grade, I would give it a solid B. I have some problems with the performances, and I have some problems with certain gaps. And honestly, if I talked about the gaps in logic or the gaps and the missed opportunities in the story proper, this video could be easily 3 times current length. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that also because it's going to seem like, if I focus on that, like I'm bashing it, which I don't want to do. So, once again, overall, Possessor, solid B. The production quality is unlike many science fiction films that I've seen, even going back to the early 2000s, like when we think of some of the better quality science fiction films. So it does stand out. There is definitely some room for improvement. But obviously, Brandon, and I do kind of feel bad for Brandon Cronenberg, because everybody's measuring him against his father. Well, you measure David Cronenberg versus an entire career that David Cronenberg has had, and in many cases is still actually actively pursuing behind the camera and whatnot. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say okay, well, compared to his father's work, blah 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 blah. No, because it's still very early on in his career, and obviously, this is a very, very strong film in and of itself, but for the ideas that were put across in the thesis sentence, that is the essay, that is this film, what would it be like if someone could take over the mind of somebody else? I just can't give it more than that grade. The grade of a solid B. Not a B minus, not a C, a solid B. It is a very high quality effort on the part of its creator and with certain aspects of its writing. I think if it wasn't such a high concept, that maybe it could have worked out a little bit better. But when you come up with a high, Inception-like concept, sometimes it's kind of hard to really, fulfill to fulfill all of the possibilities therein. So, Possessor, solid film. I look forward to future works by Mr. Brandon Cronenberg, and I could just leave it at that. Anyways, thank you very much for joining me. If you stayed on to the very end of this video, you are a champ. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. What's one of your favorite sci-fi thriller horror films? I would like to hear from that in the comments, and I may come up with it in the future, but we'll see. All right, no promises, but anyways. All right, thank you all very much for joining me on Movie Ninja, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.